Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Morning Coffee Review. It is June 4th, and holy cow, it's summertime already for some of you. But today we got a few things to talk about before we get started. You'll notice we've got our special guest, Doug McLean, here to help talk about some estimation things and sort of build on what we talked about a few weeks ago. Announcement wise, there's not a whole lot. Bluebeam's price increase did take effect on the 1st. So you'll notice on the website, everything's 10% more. Also, you've got like less than a week to make sure your Autodesk vendor stuff is set up properly in the system. Things are kind of a little weird for Autodesk purchases right now for this week because they've sort of shut down this week in order to make room for this transition on the 10th. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. We can walk you through it, regardless of who your reseller is. It's really important. It's also the first Tuesday of the month, so join me and some of you others later on Brian Haley's Civil Chat, which will be at 12:30 Central. Take a look in Twitter and LinkedIn for his link for that. That
Twitter.
said, sorry, X. Oh boy, they might be going back to Twitter, so I'm just going to save myself the hassle. But today we're going to talk about estimating and review. We've had several conversations about estimating. It's always on the Facebook Bluebeam user group. It's been on other things like, what can you really do with this? How come I'm not using ProEst or Autodesk Takeoff or some other printed out paper scale and calculator? Like, what can we really do with review when it comes to estimation? And that's why we brought Doug in here. Doug's been doing this for a long time. And he's got some tricks to share, and we'll go from there. So good morning, Doug. How are you doing today?
Morning. I'm doing great. It's June 1st. It's cloudy. Been raining here, and because it's Vancouver and Pacific Northwest, and the way it is. Although we're supposed to hit, I got to do the conversion. Probably the low 90s late this week, so we'll be fine. Yeah, it's going to go from it's like 15 degrees Celsius now, and it'll be about 28 by Thursday. So we're just going to get a big jump and clean up, and everything will be. It's this paper that you speak of. I don't do paper, David. That's what we're doing. Okay.
And you unfold it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what it's for. It's for throwing at my estimating team. Is make paper airplanes and across the room.
We love paper airplanes here.
Yeah. Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, you were on here, and we talked about some of the projects that you've been working on and your history at Towne Millwork over there, and that conversation led to we've got this data, we've done some measurements, then what can we do with it?
That's the thing with review and everything else that's coming up. I mentioned it last week in the chat, and I actually got the quote from a Millwork podcast where we're now all just IT companies that build stuff. Right. And that's really what we've become. So what do we do with our data? That's kind of the big thing is, what do you do with it now? So you got to get it out of review and get it working for you. And a few years ago, I developed a process to kind of make review an extension of our estimating software. And everybody who's seen it has been like, what have you done? Right, it's quite amazing. And Vince who's here today, he's done a lot of work with it as well. He's developed a kind of a very similar process for himself. And it's like Power Query within Excel really is the tool you need to be learning. That's it's a thing. It's anything you're going to repeat. Anything you just want a good clean data source for what you want to do. If you're always going to do it again, that's something you just want. It's a tool you want to learn. I find it easier than Excel formulas. Even the new Excel formulas which make life a lot easier than they used to. It's still easier. It's still all around better. Right.
So what did you guys use, Doug, before review? Was there a predecessor to your...
Well, when I started in this office, we just did everything manually. We just typed it in directly into our takeoff software. We had basically about a year with PlanSwift, and it's good. It's expensive for one, and it has a couple of other things that don't make it quite so easy to share files around. Everything's kind of proprietary with them. It stays in its own little drive, and it wasn't really working for us being on a network. So it was a little tricky to deal with that way. But I mean, other than that, it was good. But in the reality is, I think their license now is $2,000 a year.
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking right now, and they will not show me a price.
It takes a while to find it.
Pricing, here it is.
Yeah.
So $1,700 for one license.
Yeah.
Wow. And people are complaining about the $400.
Yeah. Like Revu relatively is cheap. I mean, we all know what the cost of software is, but Revu is cheap, and Excel is $8 a month per license or something crazy in your OS365 package,
Well, that's funny, because if we talk about it now, right, from an Autodesk perspective, there are no discounts anymore. So when you are looking to purchase a license of an AEC collection, I was just talking about this the other day, and we're talking about pricing of software, it's $3,500. There's no way around that price anymore. No. That price is the price.
Yeah.
That's wild.
You got to pay for it, and everything is all subscription based now. And, I heard Spotify is going up too for the second time in recent times. So
don't say that.
That's what you get for using a crappy platform. But, there's lots of things. Yeah, exactly. It's the cost of doing business. You need it. You have to have something, and the more you spend just sort of ignoring it, the worse off you're going to be. So it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, exactly. It just is what it is. And so,
but if you can find a solution that is affordable,
right,
that can work in your way, and that's kind of going down this vein, Doug, like what you've been able to do, what Vince has been able to do, what he posts, an affordable solution, right, that can be an efficient process if you implement it correctly.
Correct.
And in the workflow of washing the data using Power Query, there may be a learning curve, but every solution has a learning curve, especially from the Power Query side, because Jason and I have said this plenty of times, we don't know that side. And that's what everyone typically, whenever they've posted on our videos, what's that software? What's that process? They always look at that next step. And today we would love to definitely see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you guys, if we talked about before about my issues with Power Query, not Power Query, with Quantity Link, it does have its issues, but one of the things that I don't like is it doesn't work well with spaces, because you're setting it up in so many different levels. Once you get the Quantity Link, if you want your product broken down by spaces, it just makes that much more difficult to do. When you're dealing with just an overall plan, it works great, and we do use it in some of our budgetary processes. So when we're just doing a quick budget takeoff, or one of our other teams, they'll use it. But for me, it doesn't work properly, and that's one of the biggest reasons I just don't like it. And then we have some of our project managers who aren't skilled in Excel, and then they get this, why do I have this link sheet? And they freak out, and so it's like, okay, we'll just fix that, right? So
do you think, how could Bluebeam improve Quantity Link in its current state? Because right now you can select a single cell of data. Particular to whatever you have column-wise in your markups lists.
Yeah.
But you're saying from a global perspective of those markups, you want to be able to filter by space.
Exactly. That's the thing. So right, if they wanted to improve Quantity Link, they would have to be able to export something other than just measurements. And that's the other thing with Quantity Link. It's only measurements that you can export. You can't export the rest of the data. Yeah. And that's kind of what and Vince just said it just best. To use your data, you have to export the whole thing, right? That's kind of the thing, right? So, yeah, and David's right. Even you do it on a yellow pad, it still needs to be washed. So why not automate that process and, have it take seconds, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing. Right?
So there is the quantity link feature. And if you're all
Mhm.
listening into this and from an estimating perspective and that fits your need, right? And Vince said it earlier, it's your specific needs, right? There is a need where some folks just need a specific measurement that is being utilized in the markups list to reflect in an Excel existing data sheet. Then quantity link is going to work seamlessly for you.
Yeah.
But when you're needing your whole list of data, everything that's been compiled from that estimating, then you need to use something like you're saying Power Query, correct?
Yeah. It's just going to clean it up a lot faster than Excel formulas and get your end data set to what you want it. And it's so fast once you build it. And yes, there's a learning curve. It took me a year to learn it properly, and I'm still learning it. And I've actually just been approved for a full course through SkillWave training here. So I'm going to go in a little bit deeper, spend a lot of hours on YouTube watching these guys, and you just sit back in amazement and you just look and watch and learn, and it's really cool. So let's just get into it here a little bit. And my share is not available, guys.
Oh.
It's still bright green.
Okay, spotlight for everyone, fit to frame. Uh-oh. Doug.
I'll make a presenter. Here we are. Change.
Oh, you have that?
There we go.
Okay, I didn't see that capability. Cool.
And there, and I am going to bring up, not that one. Right there, that one. There we go. So this is our basic screen right here. And why is it not letting me scroll?
So
did I freeze?
No, we still got you.
It's not letting me.
Did you break it?
It looks full screen to us. So like I see
it is
all
full
of your
screen,
data.
But it's not letting me scroll this sheet.
I see the scroll bar on the bottom right.
Yeah, I know.
That's left and right though, but it's showing a full sheet right now.
This is not good. Hang on, let me.
So while you
I'm
reboot
going to hang
this,
on just a second. Yeah. Okay.
Power Query, is it included in your MS suite? Do you
have
to pay extra
it's
for
a part of Excel as long as you have Excel Office 365, or why is this not working at all? I'm just going to restart this again. It's asking me to save something. Oh, that's what it's doing. It's being, every so often this happens to me. I get too much open.
Yep, that'll do it. And you get a window that's waiting for some sort of action, and it's buried behind all these other windows.
Yeah, exactly. And,
it only happens when you're doing a demo.
Of course it does, yeah. So it's included in Excel. It's part of Excel. As long as you have O365 or anything greater than 2016, it's completely included.
So if I open Excel, it is going to show it somewhere.
Yeah, so if you open Excel, I'm trying to get this closed and rebooted and sorted out. There
While
we go.
you're
okay,
you're going to be able to share.
So. Hopefully we got this now, and I want that window. See this? Yes. Okay, now we go. I'm just going to keep it over here for now because it seems to be working on my smaller monitor. So if you want to get this, if you guys want to get this, what you're going to do is you're going to go up here to the data tab.
Yeah.
In Excel, and this portion here where it says get and transform, this is where Power Query is. It might look a little bit different how you work, but this is where it is. Okay.
So that get and transform data is essentially Power Query, even though it doesn't have a label of Power Query. Like when people are looking at Excel, It's not labeled Power Query. You're not going to find it in a panel say Power Query. It's get and transform data.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And you can bring in your data from multiple sources. And this right here, it's got a few on the list, from a text CSV, from the web, from a table or range, from a picture, which is great, other sources, existing connections. There are a few more in here. If you hit the little drop down arrow beside get data, from file, or you can bring it in like from these files or from a folder. You can connect directly from a database, which I do in some processes. You can even just start blank if you're, really good. You can connect from SharePoint. You can connect however you really want to.
This is wild. Right? It's like web, Active Directory, from Microsoft, from Azure. That's wild.
The best, one of Power Query's main features, I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to change my share screen. So I got it on my bigger monitor. I don't like working on my little monitor. It's the one I keep my email on. Okay, so one of the best things that Power Query does is it can get data from so many different sources, and that is really what you want it for, is to bring all that data in from another source. I'm trying to get my scene set up. There we go. And so ours is set up, and this is how fast this is. That's it, and it's done. Okay, so all the data that I exported from a set of drawings that I worked with, it takes that long. And if I have to refresh this, say I go in and do some more markups, export the new query and run that again, it takes that long. So that's how quick it is.
And that's because you're pointing to a folder or a file location?
A file location. So one of the things, if you look this cell right here, so this is one thing we've done to make it a little more dynamic. And so use a couple of Excel things. Is right here is the file path. So this is an Excel formula here to this, from this point forward, we'll get this. And if I were to expand this out all the way, you'll see this a lot longer. But I'd taken the text before this particular this delimiter and just stopped it right there. So that's what that is for. And that's actually used in the query. So that points to a file in the query that says what I'm looking for. And then that's what it runs the file on. Okay, this we just put it on a macro to make it easier to read down. But otherwise, if you're going to go in, you just come in here, right click and hit refresh, and you're good. Or you can go from your data tab and hit refresh, and it works just the same. And yes, I have a couple of extra things up here on my my toolbar. Vince, I know you're an Excel guy. Get Monkey Tools. Trust me. Okay.
Monkey Tools.
Monkey Tools. Yeah. Yeah. It's an Excel add-in that really will help you. Just go do it, Vince. Okay. So into the nitty-gritty of this, there's a lot of stuff behind this. So I'm just going to launch the editor. Okay, so you get in here, and this is the Power Query editor. Okay, it is a little bit different than Excel, and of course my computer is running slow this morning. But there's a lot of stuff that comes in. So just on my straight raw data import that comes in. And so right here on this side here, it shows the steps of the query, every step that's here. On this side here are all the queries that are in this particular workbook. So this is where I just bring in the raw data. And once it pops up, but it's going to run slow, of course. But you can see in the source step where I've brought it in as a CSV document from the web, from this workbook. This is that cell name we had, that file path. And then here's the name of right here is the name of your markup summary. So that's how it tells it to bring in that particular source. So you can make it completely dynamic and you know where it's going to come in.
So did you have to create this path script for it?
Yeah.
That's above? Okay.
Yeah, but you do it once. I mean, you can bring in, go and do your get data from this, right? But that's great. But when you want to make it dynamic, you're going to have to do a little bit of coding to get this working. And this is being really, really slow. But you can see through, we'll talk about some of this stuff just in the user interface. I mean, you can do a lot just from here.
So let's take it back from the start. So from the start, you went to a folder or to a file location.
Mm-hmm.
Then you opened up this secondary window that brings you into essentially like Power Query settings to figure out your data. Then you created a script that says, this is what the script above is essentially saying. You're going to this file path, this file, the markup summary.csv, and then you're saying, it looks like it says like delimiter. So you're saying like exclude, or maybe that's just that's delimiter is probably adding a comma.
So on a CSV file, it stands for comma separated values, right? So that's what it wants to use to separate everything out. So when your data comes in and it's a mess and it's just a bunch of data with commas separating everything, and it needs to break it down a little bit. And I really apologize for this being this slow. This is not a big data set. It shouldn't be this slow.
It's probably because we're on a call too. But so basically, go back to where that one was. So you're saying grab data, add a comma, and then you're saying the data
that's how you split it. That's how you split it into the individual cells that way. Okay, is split by that particular comma. No,
and then it's saying columns. So you're adding.
So it's going to bring in 34 columns from your markup summary. So it doesn't matter how many columns you export. In this case, I only want 34 of them.
Are you picking which ones, or you're just saying 34?
You can change that number. In this case, it is going to be 34 because that's how many I have. So I bring them all in, and then you can work that way. This is being really, really slow.
What's the encoding mean?
I'm not 100% sure. That's an Excel thing that goes in there. That sometimes Excel or Power Query and Excel will just write stuff in it, and you just leave it alone. And it's like, okay, do I need it there? Probably. Do I not? No. So
and quote style equals quote style dot
none. Yeah.
None.
None. Yeah. I can't do anything with it. It's really not letting me. Of course not. I can't. Normally you can zoom on this so you can read it, but it's not letting me do a thing right now, which is driving me crazy. But like I said too, so here we have helper queries. So I have a couple of steps in here for bulk find replace. So instead of doing a find replace like you would in Excel, I have a custom function that will do it in one step. So I'll go through and I'll find some things and replace them with what I need them to replace by. It won't let me.
Yeah,
over
Vince
there
is saying
on the
that
cell.
sharing slows PQ down.
Yeah,
and it's probably also like is a file on the network, but you're on Office.
It's actually on a SharePoint. So, but it shouldn't be. This data set is not that big.
I mean, your bandwidth is probably being throttled right now, anyways. Since it's on SharePoint because you're in a Teams meeting and then you're sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Stop sharing for a second real quick and see if that helps, and then so you're not breaking the internet.
Exactly.
But there's some conversation that we can talk about in the meantime. What's the best way to protect these templates, right? You spent some time building these templates to run these queries, and what's the best practice? And maybe this is an open conversation to make sure nobody else messes with it, right? So there's some talking about just back it up with Panzura or 365, or make sure that you're not leaving it wide open and available to everybody in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Roy, Panzer is a file distributor to a cloud solution of block storage. So if you're looking for cloud storage and you want to be cost effective, but you also want to dedupe your data before you push it into the cloud, that's what Panzer does. It's basically essentially a file distributor. And then there are other solutions like private cloud storage. If you want your own cloud storage solution, we partner with Panzer and Advanced 2000. Advanced 2000 is more of a VDI solution, private cloud storage versus like using AWS storage or Azure or something like that. But Panzer, you're able to bring your own to the game. So basically, you go and pick your block storage, and then you use that as your file distributor. You can do mirroring backups and those types of things as well. But it dedupes your data. So essentially, and then it decrypts it or encrypts it. It's at like, I think it's like 32 character bit. I don't remember. But basically, it's all block of data. So if anyone were to ransomware your data, they don't even have the whole puzzle. So it's only the metadata that's being changed. It's distributing back and forth. So yeah. We aren't using it here at ATG, but there are a lot of AEC companies that do use it. I know one in specific because I spoke at Autodesk University with them last year, and that is Henderson, and they use both Panzura and Advanced 2000. So they have a mix where they have a private cloud storage, and they also have a Panzura distributor as well. So,
yeah, I recommend it for firms that have more than like 3 to 4 offices. Especially the more you get spread out, it will prevent you from having multiple servers with multiple versions of everything. So with that Panzura, it really works to unify things. It works pretty darn slick. So not just saying that as a partner here, not trying to make it a sales pitch, but while we're discussing, cybersecurity and data duplication, it is a tool that you might want to take a look at. It is expensive. Fair warning. Talking about how expensive software is, but it's one of those things.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I mean, infrastructure is expensive if you look at it holistically. So, like, if you're doing an infrastructure rebuild, that's the time to have that conversation because you're already spending that very big chunk of change for your on-prem storage. So, if you're looking to move to the cloud, you have multiple offices. The great thing about Panzer is you can spin up an office very quickly and everyone has access to the same files, manages file locking at the file, like the software locking designator. So for instance, if you use Revit, it's going to go by your element locking, file locking for those. So you can use central models in there. Yeah. So Panzer is a hybrid. Yep.
Yeah, it is not working today, guys. And I don't know if a reboot would help or what, but it is absolutely not working today whatsoever. This is not a big data set. So it was a bit of a shock to me that this is not working properly. But that's the
nature of demos.
Yep.
Nature of demos, exactly. There's just, we're talking. I closed my OneNote because I was like, let's close resources, kind of thing to get it going on. But what it can do though for you, like I said, with that refresh, you saw the one refresh, how fast it works. The bigger advantage is like when you're doing this in Excel, you end up with a bunch of helper columns. Which you may or may not need. In Power Query, you can just delete them. Once they're done being used, you can get rid of them and you don't need them anymore. So that's one of its other main advantages. One thing we do is we actually merge our data back. Once it goes through our estimating software, it gets stuff applied there, and then we merge them back together with the markup summary to get quantities, to get elevations, to get a bunch of stuff. So you're merging data from different sources together. I actually
Where's that merging happening?
It happens in Power Query. Okay. So in Excel, you would do a lookup formula of some form, whether it VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, whatever. In Power Query, you do a merge to get that data. So it looks up one value, looks up these two values, matches what you want it to do. I did one the other day where I was doing a map over in Power BI, and the cities were being weird, so I had to merge it with a database that had latitude and longitude in it, so I could get the city in the right place. Like there was like Winchester, Ohio, and it was always showing on the map as Winchester, UK. I'm like, no, guys, I need this. And there's no real easy way to do that other than suggestions are by postal code, but I didn't have the postal code, so I could get the. Okay, I'm going to give that a shot, Vince, because I think you're right. It's completely stuck. I don't know what is going on there.
There's a question about 40,000 people company. No, if you were to set up Panzera in terms of merging your data and setting it up for your firm, it would be a 9-day difference. It wouldn't be the transferring of data, but in terms of like implementation, people would you could place it as an existing C drive or D drive, whatever those users are seeing, they wouldn't notice a difference on their end. The uplift would be from an IT perspective and installation, but it would just be mirroring your data into that perspective. So just a little bit different.
Yeah, for us, we only have a very small crew, so at least in our estimating office, so we don't worry too much about all that stuff. But company wide, it's okay. You can disable the query aspect if you need to. So I think my computer. Oh, there we go. I have it. Thanks, Vince. Thank you for your tip. So here we go. We're going to bring it over now, and it's all working.
Yay.
Of course. And I'm going to go share. And that one. And there we go. So here is Power Query in its full. This is the editor that you get. Now, this is just straight up raw data. So as you see here, it works through a series of steps. So as it comes in, this is in the first line, but we really want it here. So you just run a step to promote the headers up. And then it will do an automatic where it'll change your data types. Now, data types are really important. You see this is text. You get into something where this is a number. This is a decimal number. This is also available inside of Power BI, and one of the few differences in Power BI is in Excel, a fixed decimal number shows up as currency. In Power BI, it shows up as a fixed decimal number, whereas for 2 decimals, right? So I'm actually going to skip those for just a second because I'm going to come back to those a little later on in the end. So I'm going to remove. Basically, these are going to add a couple of columns here way on the far side, and they're going to convert them, and then I'm just going to remove them because I don't need them anymore. And then I expand this table out so it brings this data back in. Add a couple of conditions to this. Remove stuff. Oh, now it's going to be mean.
So, Doug, how did you start? Like, how did we get here?
How did we start? We developed a process where.
But no, like if someone was watching this and they're like,
okay,
how did Doug get the data to this point?
Okay.
So you just pointed to a file, right? From that open, the close, load, and then you click that button. Does it automatically show a page like this when you clicked that button? So like let's just quick. I'll let you share in a second. So if I open up Excel and I point to a file. So if I go here, I go file, I go to a CSV,
Yep.
right? We go to my
Dead on.
desktop. I probably have to have something in here.
You need a CSV file. Yep.
Okay, let me.
National Cheese Day? Good to know. Wait, is that your nation or my nation?
This is mine. This is me.
Oh, okay.
File,
Now,
open.
Even before all this, you have to export that data out as a CSV file. And to be fair, you can export it as a PDF. So Power Query can get data from a PDF. So that's another advantage to this over Quantity Link is even a basic license, because you can export a report even in the basic license now of Revu. You can still do this process, right?
Okay, so from here, I basically can markups lists, export my data to CSV. Okay, so we'll save this to my desktop, which I'm surprised I just don't have one there, but you know, I delete things because Jason calls me out all the time.
There you go.
Okay, so import,
right.
Boom.
Okay, and that's going to come up. Now, what you want to do is you want to go down and hit the transform data button. They're in the lower right-hand corner there.
So this is already adding a delimiter.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. It will do a lot of this stuff for you. This is pretty basic, but yes, you don't want to hit load. You want to hit transform data. Okay. So I can just walk you through this. Let's make it. So here you go. Here's all your steps that you've got here. Now yours came in. Now you see it wrote 3 steps for you, right? So it automatically right over on the right-hand side.
Okay.
So your source step. So if you click in your source, and you're going to get that same thing that I had. Okay. So this is what you're going to do.
Oh, so I didn't even have to write this.
You don't have to write that. So it will write that, but this will only work for this file from now on. So when we did it, we tweaked it so it was dynamic. So it points to a file path, so you can reuse it.
So that's one of the things.
You've got to know a couple of little things to be able to rewrite. You see where that section is in red, that file contents? You can go in and edit that. You can rewrite that to where it needs to be.
So everyone ping Doug for the secret sauce.
It's all listed in the studio project, how it all goes. I'd have to look up the number. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But that's what you do. You can edit that part to make it so it's more dynamic for yourself.
Perfect.
Okay, and you see now the next step, it's already promoted the headers for you.
And that's these, right?
Yeah, so your first line, so in your any CSV file, it'll automatically come up. Had you imported an Excel table, the headers would already be in the header line, but it doesn't do it on a CSV file, right? And then it's automatically going to change your data type for you. Though that's pretty standard for Power Query. It's going to do that on its own. Okay.
And then you can add new rules by
add new rules. So one of the things we're going to do, so what I want you to do is click on the 1. Okay. So
this thing?
Yeah, so click that. Okay. So now you see in your subject number where you have those brackets, where your subject column in like there, you have those brackets. You kind of want to delete that value. So what you're going to do is, like, up top in the ribbon, go to remove rows, hit the little drop down and go remove top rows. Okay, there we go. And it's going to come up, and then let's just say 1. Okay, click it. Now, do you see over on the step? It's given you a step where you've removed your top row, because you really probably do not want that 62 in brackets that you had there.
Because it's
That's
62
probably
markups, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to be something that you want in your data set. So here's and something else. Basically, you're just going to clean this up, right?
So what if I only wanted vertical paneling? Let's do that.
Okay, so we can if this is going to be consistent, we can filter for that. So click on one of those cells that say vertical paneling. No, in the subject column. Okay, right click. Now go text filters and says equals. There you go.
This is easy.
It is very easy. And you see over on the side where it's put in that row for you that says filtered rows. Now, if you double click the gear icon over on the right, there's where that's your step that's come up. So I showed you one way, but there's other ways you can do it. You can filter like you would normally do in Excel. Okay, so let's just click OK for a second. So under your, let's say your label column, click the filter button.
This right here?
That's the filter button. And say you only want your 120s. So there you go. Click OK. There you go. So now every time you want to run this and repeat this, that's what's going to happen for you.
Okay. So this caches to like the metadata of the file then?
Yeah.
So when you open it, okay, it remembers it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It never touches the source data. That's some of the other things that you're going to want to do.
What if I saved over it? It still remembers the cache data of the query?
Yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't touch the source data at all. So your CSV file remains your CSV file. Okay? And so that's something that you always have to remember. Now, you got a couple of columns in there that are blank, right? And they're not going to do, you're not going to do too much with them. So you can do things like you can remove the ones you don't want. So that's remove rows. There's another one just a couple steps to the left that say remove columns. Or, so go all the way over to on your scroll bar, go all the way over to the left. That's for control here, or is that just a zoom thing? So go all the way over to the left. No, on your scroll bar.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Take it over to the left. Click on ID. Okay, now you're going to hold control and click parent.
Where's parent at?
Next, it's the next one.
Okay.
Okay, and keep holding control and select space and status. Okay, now I want you to hover over one of them and anything else you want.
Release control.
Yep, release control. Right click. No, you got to be in the. Sorry, you got to be in the bar, in the top bar.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back. So boom.
Okay, right click, remove columns. There you go. Now they're gone. So see, as it puts that in there, it removes columns. Okay. These are the things that you're going to want to be able to do, right? You want to clean up your data. Sometimes you're going to export stuff. You don't want stuff, right?
So essentially you can filter, because natively in here you can do this, which they changed the license types.
Yes.
Now that you have to have a certain type to do this. But essentially you don't need those license types if you got all the measurements you want and you're going to wash your data anyways in Power Query.
Right. Oops. You can, it's all going to depend on where you want to filter. Okay. You can filter in the export summary for sure, or you can filter here. It's not going to be, it's your choice. I actually have a list that of all markups I don't want that we filter by. Right. So when we merge that, or when we filter that, we filter by this list, so we get rid of everything. It's really cool. So that's kind of the one thing.
So can you save a step to like a template so that when you're running a whole different query, you don't have to redo these steps?
Yes and no. You can build custom functions. So, but that takes a little bit of extra work. Like I have a couple extra custom functions, which are basically a bunch of steps. And I don't have the time to explain that in 15 minutes.
No, you're fine.
How to do that. But yes, you can have those custom functions there.
Okay.
Here's something else that we do on a regular basis. So I want you to click on your label column because I can see that. Okay, now up in the top, just basically right above you, there's a split column feature. Okay, hit the little arrow. You're going to split column by delimiter. Okay, now hit where it says comma, change that to custom. No, up. Yeah, click there. Go down to the bottom, click custom. And type in quote space. Now, do you see your no, the quote symbol, the double quote symbol? You see your data, it says 120 inches tall, but there's a space in there. Okay. Now you want to leave it there, and now click OK. So do you see it separated your label column? Because you can't do anything with the data that it was. You had it 120 tall. Do the same with the whole query. What do you mean, Vince? You copy steps like one note. Yeah, you can do that. Again, Vince, we got 10 minutes. I'm not going to go into the advanced editor and redo the whole query. Yes, there's a ton that Vince can do. There is a lot that you can do. And if you do want to see the steps of what's going on in the code, upper left-hand corner, there's a thing that says Advanced Editor. Click that.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
yeah.
That's the code in underneath.
I understand this better than like seeing individual ones. Yeah.
Well, those are in the individual lines. Okay, but that's what you're doing. Okay. So that's a kind of a cool thing. Right?
Yeah.
So that's all your steps.
Yeah, these are all the script steps for those folks that are into scripting. And just like Vince said, you can copy this into Note. I did that when I was doing custom stamps and then copy it over. There's also like a web editor too that's a little bit easier that checks your functions for you as well. I forget, do I have that enabled here? Let's see. I think I do script reference. Yeah, is it this? Yeah, JHint. So this is it right here. I'll put this in the chat. So you can copy things into here too. Just it doesn't save it, so I copy mine into a text file and then copy it over into here. Hello world. Okay, flex it out of there. So that's cool. And then when you're done, you just hit.
Okay, so hit the close and up. Hit the little drop down arrow beside close and load, and go close and load to. There you go, and just. That's where you want to put it. So you can do a couple of things here, but for simplicity, leave it as a table on the existing sheet. So click the existing sheet radio button and click OK. There you go.
Wow.
That's just a very basic thing. You've cleaned up. That's exactly what you want. Yes, you can rename your tables. You can do a whole bunch of other things in here. Right.
You can make it a pivot table if you're listening.
You can load it directly into the data model and go as a pivot table as well. You can just do it directly there. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can I show you guys? Myself. Yep. You're back on. I just wanted to get people like that are listening that when we went to there, I was like, well, Doug, like, how did we get here?
It is easier in Excel. So once you get there, so one of the things that I've talked about before is and we've all kind of talked about this, is a better grouped markup. Okay, so you guys can see this. So this is something, one of the really things that it can do. And so I filtered this down a little bit. So I came up with, I can do this where I have a subject and a label as it's separated by a semicolon there, you can see. So what we do, if two different columns, I have to do this a little bit differently. So basically what I first do is I transform the subject column over here to a list. You can see as I click off to the side, it says metal buyout. Then I have to do a second step where I'm going to transform the label column to a list. Okay, so now I have this label column to a list. And you can see that column is now in a list separated into rows. Then I'm going to remove a couple of extra sub columns that I don't need, the subject and the label column. And I'm going to convert these two lists to a table. So over here, you can see how it goes. So now it becomes like this. I remove the lists and I expand that table. So now with one markup, I have now got two rows of identical data where that was split into a metal countertop with a plywood subtop. And then a couple of extra steps here where I can add, because I've got to fill this back in now. Going like that. And at the end of the day, because I've actually have it filtered to remove anything that says buyout in it. So if I just go back to here, that one markup from there became two column lines. So it's something when you're doing this to filter, you can do one markup and turn it into multiple things. And this is a grouped markup. And now we have all the data from everything in that way.
So basically you're using like a markup that it essentially could be a symbol or something that has multiple markups in it. So when you place it, it's quantifying a zone. And here, and when you export it, it sees it as a group. So it actually doesn't see the metadata.
Well, it actually doesn't see it as a group. It's the subject in this case is, for us, it's a metal buyout. And then the label is metal countertops with a plywood subtop.
Oh, so it is like, but is it one markup or did you group markups?
It's one markup.
Okay.
It's one mark. In this case, it's an area tool.
Okay, so you made an area measurement with a label that has two comments to it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's how you do it. And but the data, if you just do a regular group markup, you don't get the data that goes along with that. It comes in exports out of your markup summary as a group. So that is another thing that you can do with it. Like I said, I just filtered for this to make it a little easier just to show you what it's doing. But that's what it does. So
basically you have one markup that you're utilizing for an area, but you probably need to know your plywood and then your whatever it's resting on for the finished top. And basically what you did is you made one markup, but you made a comma because you knew when you were coming into here, you can grab that data, wash it by separating those two into two separate markups. Now you can quantify a value to from one area measurement to two different markups.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's, one of the other things that split column can do is, like, if I just go split column by delimiter and in what we did before, if you go into the advanced option, you can actually split it into rows as well. You don't need to split that into just columns. You can split it into rows. And doing something like this in Excel is extremely difficult. Okay, just to let you know that. It can be done, but you need to understand some really funky formulas.
So it's better to use Power Query, which has everything built in.
It really is, yeah. It really is. Like, see some of the steps we have here where you see I have, it says like excluded in places, and this one's not a huge data set, but down here I can filter, and all these blanks. So if I just go my filter by subject, it's going to take those blanks out. And here I'm actually filtering by a list. So you can see up here where that list contains, but I put a not. You put a not in front, so it doesn't want those there. So all those things that you don't want are here, and they're contained in this list here. So I don't want any of these things.
Wow.
Okay. And those I've built, they're in my Excel sheet, and they come in here as a connection, what we call a connection only query. Okay. So these are just pretty much standard, like our standard tools, a bunch of standard review tools, right? If they inadvertently show up in your markups list, we don't want them, right? We don't want them anymore, right? So I want to stop sharing.
So I loved your backdrop though.
What, my don't panic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's what Power Query can do to you and do for you in a very basic sense. I mean, there's a lot in there. There's some advanced settings in there. Yes, that's absolutely right, David. I will agree with that one. Come over to the Brainery and we'll talk and do more. Let me see.
Yeah, so there was a question about like step-by-step workflows. We did a step-by-step just beginner right now with Doug teaching me. But there's also work that Doug has done prior to this within Revu. So Doug, aside from the forms page at Chapter 2, which is a great place if you're all looking for questions and answers, where is there a place that you have videos, like workflows of these?
I have a couple of videos up on YouTube. One explains how to do the better grouped markup. I'm just putting in the chat right now the location to the studio project.
Ooh, studio project.
Okay, so that's where it was. That is my XCon 2022 presentation, and it goes through and explains a lot of the stuff step by step, including how to do the custom functions and how to get them to work. So there are custom find replace functions in there. There are some of the latest stuff isn't in there yet because I just completed it. So we're getting it working on our end here. So but a lot of it is in there and how it works. And once you get it done, it's a 10-second refresh every time you do it. There's no rebuilding Excel formulas. There's nothing. We save this in every job file. There's a template folder. It's all saved. We have a template markup summary export. It's all good, right? It's all in there, right? Yeah, Vince has got some great stuff too in there.
Yes,
right?
Post your links. Post your link, Doug, to yours if you can real quick. Vince, before ours closes. Yeah. Before this, because we're at time. But post your links. We'll share them. If not, Doug, email us your link. We'll post it in our MCR. And then Vince will grab yours.
Yeah, that might be better. Give me a minute or two to get it.
Yeah.
Let
me see.
And Liz is great. Yeah.
Share them on the LinkedIn group too.
But it really is important that before you even start all this, learn how to do a markup summary export. Get that right. Power Query's one of its main things is it likes consistency. It wants this consistent data going in, especially when you're first learning it. You can make it dynamic. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to error proof it and all that stuff, but you're not going to do that right away. So learn how to do a markup summary export. That's first. Get a consistent data source going in, and then you're going to end up with consistent data coming out. And that's the really, really important thing that you're going to want to do first, right? And I still go, every time I do a markup summary export, I still do it 4 times, because it's like, okay, this is not right. Especially when I'm doing it in PDF, right? If I do it in CSV, it's not so big of a deal because I can clean it up in a hurry. But if it's a PDF, yeah, I still do it 4 or 5 times, and I've been using this now for 6 years. So it's like start. And David's right. Start with the end in mind. Think what you want to do, and then how you're going to get there. Quickly. There are so many resources available on YouTube. One of the very best, and he'll walk you through it from beginning to end. Excel is Fun with Mike Girvin. He is an old school Excel MVP. He's one of the very, very first ones. He's very good. He will teach you from the beginning, which is great. Some of the guys I follow, you don't want to start looking at right away. Start with Mike. Start with Excel Plus. These will start you from the beginning, and you will learn it from the beginning. These are the ways you want to do. Even Excel Campus with John Campos, I believe is his name. These guys, that's where you want to start at the beginning, right? Vince, would you agree with that?
Yeah, there you go. Don't be afraid to
Don't
play
be afraid.
with.
That's right.
You'll go wrong, but that's a good way to learn. So
yeah,
that's all we have time for today. Doug, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with that. Same thing with everybody in the chat. Thank you for chiming in there and sharing stuff. There's some good links posted. We will continue this conversation in the future, but in the next time, we will see you next Tuesday. Thanks all. Take care out there, and we will see you soon.
See you soon.
Guys. Yep. Bye.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.